The celestial citadel floated through the darkness of space like a small moon made of gold and crystal. It was the size of a planet, and inside it lived millions of beings from hundreds of different worlds. But this was not just any space station. This was the home of the Queen of Galaxies, the most powerful being in all of existence. Beak Doyun pushed his cleaning cart through the lower corridors of the citadel. The wheels made a soft sound against the metal floor. He wore a simple gray uniform with the word sanitation written on the back. His hands were rough from years of hard work, and his face showed the tiredness of a man who never got enough sleep. He was a human, and in the celestial citadel, being human meant being nothing. Humanity had joined the Galactic Accord only 50 years ago. They were the youngest species, the weakest, and the poorest. When Earth was destroyed by a dying sun, the other species had allowed humans to live on their stations and planets. But they never let humans forget that they were guests, not equals. Doyun stopped his cart outside a large door and began to mop the floor. A group of tall, blue-skinned aliens walked past him. They did not look at him. They did not even notice he was there. To them, he was invisible, just another human doing dirty work. He did not mind. Being invisible kept him safe. Being invisible kept his daughter safe. Yuna was 7 years old. She had her mother's smile and her father's stubborn spirit. She was the reason Doyun woke up every morning. She was the reason he worked double shifts and saved every coin he earned. She was his whole world. Their home was a small room in the maintenance section of the citadel. It had one bed, one table, and one window that showed only pipes and machinery. But Doyun had covered the walls with pictures that Yuna drew. Pictures of trees and oceans and blue skies, things she had never seen but loved to imagine. When his shift ended, Doyun walked home through the winding corridors. He passed markets where aliens sold strange foods and glowing crystals. He passed soldiers in silver armor who guarded the upper levels. He kept his head down and walked quickly, like all humans learn to do. When he opened the door to their room, Yuna ran to him and jumped into his arms. "Appa, you're home." Doyun laughed and held her tight. All his tiredness disappeared when he saw her smile. "Did you eat dinner?" he asked. "Yes, I made rice and soup. I saved some for you." He sat down at the small table and ate the food she had prepared. It was simple, but it tasted like home. Yuna sat across from him, swinging her legs and watching him eat. "Appa, tell me about Earth again," she said. Doyun smiled. She asked him this almost every night. "What do you want to know?" "Tell me about the ocean." He closed his eyes and remembered. The ocean was very big, so big that you could not see the end of it. The water was blue and green and sometimes silver when the sun touched it, and the waves would come to the beach and touch your feet and then run away again, like they were playing with you. Yuna listened with wide eyes. "I want to see the ocean." "Maybe one day you will." "How? There is no more ocean." Doyun reached across the table and touched her cheek. "There are many planets with oceans, little one. One day, when you are older, you will travel to all of them. You will swim in waters of every color. I promise." Yuna smiled, but then her face became sad. "I wish Iyama could come too." Doyun felt his heart ache. His wife, Suman, had died during the evacuation of Earth. She had been helping other families get to the ships when a building collapsed. She had saved 12 people that day, but she could not save herself. "Your Iyama is always with us," Doyun said softly. "She watches over you from the stars." "Is she an angel now?" "Yes, the most beautiful angel in the whole galaxy." After dinner, Doyun helped Yuna get ready for bed. He tucked her under the blanket and sat beside her on the small bed. She held a piece of paper in her hands. It was a drawing she had made. It showed 3 figures holding hands: a tall man, a small girl, and a woman with wings floating above them. "This is my favorite drawing," Yuna said. "It's us, you, me, and Iyama." "It's beautiful," Doyun said. "You should keep it somewhere safe." I will keep it forever. Doyun kissed her forehead. Now sleep, I have to work early tomorrow. Appa. Yes. Why do the other aliens not like us? Doyun was quiet for a moment. He did not want to fill her heart with bitterness. They don't know us yet, he said. When people don't know you, sometimes they are afraid or mean. But that is not your fault. You just have to be yourself, be kind, be brave. And one day they will see how special humans are. I'm not afraid of them, Yuna said. I know, you are very brave, but promise me something. What? Promise me you will stay safe. Don't go to places you should not go. Don't talk to people who might hurt you. Stay invisible like me. Yuna frowned. I don't like being invisible. I know, but sometimes invisible is safe. She nodded slowly. Okay, Appa, I promise. Doyun turned off the light and walked to the window. He looked out at the pipes and machines, but in his mind he saw the stars beyond. Somewhere out there was the place where Earth used to be. Somewhere out there was his wife, watching over them. He thought about the Queen of Galaxies. Everyone on the Citadel knew about her, but no one ever saw her. She lived in the highest towers, surrounded by guards and priests. She had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. They said she was so powerful that she could destroy stars with a thought. They said she was so frightening that no one had spoken to her in 3,000 years. The punishment for speaking to the queen without permission was death. Or worse, they said, she could erase you from existence, make it so you were never born. Doyun shook his head. The queen was not his concern. He was just a janitor. He cleaned floors and fixed pipes. He would never even see her in his lifetime. All he wanted was to raise his daughter, to keep her safe, to give her a better life than he had. He looked at Yuna sleeping peacefully in her bed, holding her drawing close to her chest. She looked so small, so innocent. She had no idea how dangerous the universe was. But she was all he had, and he would protect her with his life. He made a silent promise to his wife. I will raise her brave, Suman. I will raise her kind, just like you wanted. Then he lay down on the floor beside the bed and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would be another long day of work, another day of being invisible. But tonight, in this small room, with his daughter safe beside him, Baek Doyun felt like the richest man in the galaxy. Yuna was bored. Her father worked long hours every day, sometimes from early morning until late at night. He always told her to stay in their room and wait for him, but the room was so small. The walls felt like they were getting closer every day, and outside she could hear the sounds of the Citadel, people talking, ships flying, music playing from distant markets. She wanted to explore. At first she only walked to the end of their corridor and back. Then she went a little further, then a little further still. No one paid attention to her. She was just a small human girl in old clothes. To everyone else, she was invisible, just like her father said. One day, she found a door that was different from the others. It was hidden behind a pile of broken machines in a forgotten corner of the maintenance level. The door was old and covered in dust, but when Yuna touched it, it opened easily. Behind it was a long, dark corridor that went up, up, up. Yuna knew she should not go inside. Her father had told her to stay safe, to stay invisible, but her feet moved on their own, and before she knew it, she was climbing the hidden stairs. The corridor twisted and turned like a snake. The walls changed from metal to stone, then from stone to something soft and warm that glowed with gentle light. She walked for what felt like hours, but she was not tired. Something was pulling her forward, something wonderful. And then she saw it. The garden. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Trees with silver leaves reached up toward a sky that was not real but looked real. Flowers of every color grew along crystal paths. Some flowers were red like fire. Some were blue like the ocean her father described. Some were colors she had no name for, colors that did not exist anywhere else. The air smelled sweet, like honey and rain and something magical she could not explain. Yuna walked into the garden with her mouth open. She forgot about her father's warnings. She forgot about staying invisible. She could only think about how beautiful everything was. She touched a flower with purple petals, and it made a soft singing sound. She laughed with joy. Another flower had petals that felt like silk. Another one changed colors when she looked at it. She found a small pond with water so clear she could see stones at the bottom that sparkled like diamonds. Fish with golden scales swam in circles, and when she put her hand in the water, they came to touch her fingers. "This is like the Earth Appa talks about," she whispered to herself. "This is what home must have felt like." She came back the next day, and the day after that. Every time her father went to work, she would sneak through the hidden door and climb the secret corridor to the garden. She made friends with the fish in the pond. She gave names to the flowers. She would lie on the soft grass and look up at the fake sky and pretend she was on a real planet with real clouds. No one else was ever there. The garden seemed abandoned, forgotten. Yuna thought maybe she was the only one who knew about it. She started bringing things from her room: a small ball to play with, paper and crayons to draw pictures of the flowers, a piece of bread to feed the fish, though they did not eat it. She felt happy in the garden. She felt free. One evening, after a whole week of secret visits, Yuna decided to pick a flower. It was a small one, growing near the edge of the pond. It glowed with a soft white light, like a tiny star. She thought it was the most beautiful flower in the whole garden. She wanted to give it to her father. She wanted to show him that beautiful things still existed in the universe. She knelt down and carefully picked the flower. It came out of the ground easily, and the glow stayed in her hands. She smiled and put it in her pocket. "Appa will love this," she said. She turned to leave the garden, walking toward the hidden corridor, but then she stopped. Someone was standing at the edge of the garden. It was a woman. No, not a woman. Something more, something older. She was tall, taller than any being Yuna had ever seen. Her skin was pale like moonlight, and her hair floated around her head like it was underwater. She wore a dress made of stars, actual stars that sparkled and moved like they were alive. But it was her eyes that made Yuna freeze. They were not normal eyes. They looked like dying suns, burning with a light that was both beautiful and terrifying. They looked like they held the secrets of the universe. They looked ancient. So ancient that looking at them made Yuna feel like time itself had stopped. The woman did not move. She did not speak. She just stood there, watching Yuna with those impossible eyes. Yuna should have been scared. Any other being in the galaxy would have fallen to their knees in terror. Any other being would have begged for mercy or tried to run away. This was the Queen of Galaxies, the eternal Empress Veilmora, the most powerful and feared being in all of existence. But Yuna did not know this. She only saw a lonely woman standing alone in a garden. So she did what any polite child would do. She smiled and waved. "Hello," Yuna said. Her voice was bright and friendly. "I'm sorry I didn't know anyone else came here. This garden is really pretty, isn't it?" The Empress did not respond. She seemed frozen like a statue. In 12,000 years, no one had ever spoken to her so casually. In 3,000 years, no one had dared to speak to her at all. The guards who watched the garden through hidden cameras saw what was happening. They tried to move, tried to run to stop the child, but the Empress's presence held them in place. Her power was so great that just being near her made it impossible to move without her permission. Yuna waited for the woman to say something. When she did not, Yuna walked a little closer. "Are you okay?" she asked. "You look sad." Still no answer. The Empress's ancient eyes were fixed on the small human girl, studying her like she was the strangest creature in the universe. Yuna looked down at the flower in her pocket. She remembered what her father always told her. When you take something, you should give something back. It's the polite thing to do. She had taken a flower from this garden. Maybe this pretty lady was upset because of that. "Oh," Yuna said, "I took a flower, I'm sorry. I wanted to give it to my Appa because he works really hard and he's always tired. I wanted to make him smile." She reached into her other pocket where she kept her favorite things. Her fingers found the folded piece of paper she always carried with her. Her favorite drawing. The one with her family. The one with the angel. She pulled it out and looked at it. It was wrinkled now from being folded so many times. Some of the crayon colors had faded, but it was still her most precious thing. Yuna walked up to the Empress. She held up the drawing. "My Appa says when you take something, you should give something back," she said. "So here, you can have this. It's my favorite drawing. It's my family. That's me, and that's my Appa, and that's my Iama. She's an angel now because she went to heaven." The Empress looked at the crumpled piece of paper in the child's hands. A simple drawing made with cheap crayons. 3 stick figures. A family. An offering. In 12,000 years, empires had given her planets. Species had given her slaves. Armies had given her the skulls of their enemies. No one had ever given her something like this. No one had ever given her something real. The Empress reached out with a hand that had crushed stars and ended civilizations. Her fingers, pale and cold, touched the edge of the paper. And for the first time in 3,000 years, she spoke. "What is this?" The words hung in the air like a spell. The Empress had spoken. After 3,000 years of silence, after 3,000 years of watching the universe bow before her without a word, she had opened her mouth and asked a question. Yuna did not understand how important this moment was. She just smiled at the tall woman and held up her drawing a little higher. "It's my family," she said again. "See, this one is my Appa. He's very tall and very kind. He tells me stories about Earth every night. Earth was the planet where humans used to live, but it's gone now. The sun ate it." The Empress's eyes moved slowly over the drawing. The stick figures, the smiling faces, the woman with wings. "And this?" she asked, her voice soft like wind through dead leaves. "This figure that flies." "That's my Iyama. She died when I was little. She was helping other people escape from Earth and something bad happened. Appa says she's an angel now. She watches over us from the stars." Yuna pointed up at the garden's fake sky, maybe from up there. The Empress was silent for a long moment. Her face showed nothing, no emotion, no movement. She had learned to hide her feelings a long time ago. When you lived for 12,000 years, feelings became dangerous. They made you weak. They made you care. And caring only brought pain. But something was happening inside her. Something she had not felt in thousands of years. It was small, like a tiny seed buried deep in frozen ground. It was the beginning of a feeling she had almost forgotten. Curiosity. "Why do you give this to me?" the Empress asked. Yuna tilted her head. "Because I took a flower from your garden. Appa says when you take something, you have to give something back. It's only fair. And this is my most favorite thing, so I thought it was a good trade." "You trade your most precious possession for a single flower." "Yes, is that okay?" The Empress looked at the child, really looked at her. In her long life, she had seen trillions of beings. She had watched civilizations rise and fall. She had seen heroes and monsters, saints and sinners. But she had never seen anything quite like this small human girl. There was no fear in her eyes, no greed, no hidden plan. She was pure and simple and honest in a way that the universe had forgotten how to be. "The flower you took," the Empress said slowly, "is called a starbloom. It only grows in places where reality is thin. Each one contains a small piece of a dying star. They are worth more than planets." Yuna's eyes went wide. "Oh no, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I can put it back." She started to reach into her pocket, but the Empress held up a hand. "Keep it." "But you said it's worth more than planets." "Your drawing," the Empress said, "is worth more to me." Yuna did not understand. It was just a drawing. She made drawings all the time. But the tall woman seemed to want it, so she smiled and placed it in the Empress's pale hand. Okay, it's yours now. You have to take care of it, okay? Don't let it get wet or it will be ruined. The Empress looked at the paper in her hand. Such a simple thing. Such a human thing. She could feel the texture of the cheap paper. She could see where the crayons had pressed hard and where they had pressed soft. She could see the love that had gone into every line. "What is your name, child?" she asked. "I'm Yuna, Beak Yuna. What's your name?" For a moment the Empress did not answer. No one had asked her name in thousands of years. Everyone knew who she was. Everyone feared who she was. But this child looked at her like she was just another person. "I am called Valemora," she said. "That's a pretty name. It sounds like music." Yuna sat down on the grass and looked up at the Empress. "Do you live here, in this garden?" "I come here sometimes to be alone." "Don't you have any friends?" The question was innocent, but it hit the Empress like a blade. Friends. When was the last time she had a friend? When was the last time anyone treated her as anything other than a goddess or a monster? "No," she said quietly, "I do not have friends." Yuna nodded seriously. "I don't have many friends either. The other kids on the station don't like humans very much. They call us names and throw things at us. But Appa says that's because they don't know us yet. He says if they knew us, they would like us." "Your father sounds wise." "He's the best Appa in the whole galaxy." Yuna smiled proudly. "He works very hard. He cleans things and fixes things. He says it's not a fancy job, but it's honest work. He says honest work is nothing to be ashamed of." The Empress sat down on the grass across from Yuna. She had not sat on the ground in centuries. Queens did not sit on the ground, but something about this moment made her want to be closer to the child, to see the world from her level. "Tell me about your father," she said. "Tell me about your family." And Yuna did. She talked for a long time. She told the Empress about how her father woke up early every morning to make her breakfast, how he worked double shifts to save money for her education, how he told her stories about Earth every night before bed, stories about oceans and forests and mountains and rain. She told her about her mother, how she had been a nurse who helped sick people, how she had been brave and kind and always smiled even when things were hard, how she had died saving others because that was just who she was. She told her about the small room they lived in, about the drawings on the walls, about the dreams she had of one day seeing a real ocean. The Empress listened to every word. She did not interrupt. She did not judge. She just listened. And with every story, that tiny seed inside her grew a little bigger. "Your mother," the Empress said when Yuna finished. "She sounds like she was a remarkable person. She was the best Iyama ever. I miss her a lot, but Appa says she's still with us. He says love doesn't die, even when people do. It just changes into something else, like how water becomes clouds and then becomes rain again." "Your father told you that?" "Yes, he tells me lots of things like that. He says humans are special because we feel things very deeply. He says that's why the other species don't understand us. They think we're weak because we cry and laugh and get angry. But Appa says feeling things is our strength. He says it's what makes us human." The Empress was quiet for a long moment. In 12,000 years, she had conquered half the universe. She had made laws that governed 1 trillion worlds. She had been worshipped and feared and obeyed. But no one had ever explained the universe to her the way this child's father had explained it to her. "I think," the Empress said slowly, "your father might be the wisest being I have ever heard of." "Really?" Yuna beamed with pride. "Yes, and I think you are very lucky to have him." "I know, I'm the luckiest girl in the galaxy." The Empress looked at the drawing in her hand again. The simple lines, the bright colors, the angel watching from above. "I must go now," she said, standing up. "But I would like to speak with you again, Yuna. Would that be acceptable?" Yuna jumped to her feet, her face bright with happiness. Yes, I would like that very much. Can we be friends? The word hit the Empress like a thunderbolt. Friends. This small human child wanted to be friends with the Queen of Galaxies, not because of her power, not because of her wealth, but simply because she wanted someone to talk to. Yes, the Empress said, and the word felt strange on her tongue after so many years. I would like that very much. She turned and walked toward the edge of the garden. But before she disappeared, she looked back at Yuna one more time. Take care of that flower, she said, and take care of your father. Treasures like them are rare in this universe. Then she was gone, fading into the light like a dream. Yuna stood alone in the garden, smiling. She had made a new friend today, a tall, sad woman with eyes like dying suns who had never had a friend before. She could not wait to tell her father about her day. But then she remembered. Her father had told her to stay invisible, to not go to places she should not go. If she told him about the garden and the woman, he would be worried. He might even be angry. So she decided to keep it a secret, just for now, just until she figured out how to explain it. She skipped back toward the hidden corridor, the starbloom flower glowing softly in her pocket. She did not know that everything was about to change. The news spread through the celestial citadel like fire. A human child had spoken to the Empress. Not just spoken to her, but talked with her for nearly an hour. The guards who watched through hidden cameras had seen everything. Within hours, every official in the citadel knew. Within a day, the entire galaxy was talking about it. High Priestess Ilara was furious. She was a tall being with gray skin and 4 arms. She had served the Empress for 800 years. She was the keeper of the sacred laws, the voice of the Queen, the one who made sure the universe never forgot its place. And the most sacred law of all was simple. No one speaks to the Empress without permission. The punishment was death. Find the child, Ilara commanded her soldiers. Find her and her family. Bring them to the Hall of Judgment. The soldiers searched the lower levels of the citadel. They went door to door in the maintenance section. They asked questions. They made threats. And finally, they found what they were looking for. Beak Doyun was working when they came for him. He was on his knees, fixing a broken pipe when 6 soldiers in silver armor surrounded him. They did not explain. They did not answer his questions. They simply grabbed him and dragged him away. My daughter, Doyun screamed. Where is my daughter? What have you done with her? She is being collected, one soldier said coldly. You will see her soon enough, in the Hall of Judgment. Doyun's blood turned to ice. The Hall of Judgment was where they executed criminals, where they made examples of those who broke the sacred laws. He had never been there, but he had heard stories, terrible stories. They threw him into a holding cell. He paced back and forth, his mind racing with fear. What had happened? What had Yuna done? She was just a child. She could not have done anything wrong. An hour later, the door opened. 2 soldiers walked in, holding Yuna by her arms. She was crying. Appa! She ran to him and he caught her in his arms. He held her tight, feeling her small body shake with sobs. It's okay, he whispered. I'm here, Appa's here. I'm sorry, Appa. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do anything bad. What happened? Tell me what happened. Through her tears, Yuna told him everything. The hidden door, the garden, the beautiful flowers, the tall woman with eyes like dying suns, the drawing she had given away. Doyun felt his heart stop. The woman with eyes like dying suns. There was only one being in the universe that description could match. His daughter had spoken to the Empress. His daughter had broken the most sacred law in the galaxy. Oh, Yuna, he whispered. Oh, my little Yuna. I didn't know, Appa. I didn't know who she was. She looked so sad and lonely. I just wanted to be nice. Doyun closed his eyes. Of course she did. That was who Yuna was. That was who her mother had been. They could never see someone suffering without trying to help. It was their gift. And now it would be their death. The soldiers came for them a few hours later. They marched through long corridors and up tall stairs until they reached the Hall of Judgment. It was a massive room with a ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species filled the observation platforms. They had all come to watch the execution of the humans who dared to break the sacred law. Doyun held Yuna's hand as they walked to the center of the hall. She was shaking, but she did not cry anymore. She walked beside her father with her head held high, just like he had taught her. High Priestess Ilara stood on a raised platform, looking down at them with cold eyes. "Beak Doyun," she said, her voice echoing through the hall. "Your daughter has committed the greatest crime in our civilization. She spoke to the Eternal Empress without permission. She violated the sanctity of the Queen's private garden, and worst of all, she touched the Queen with her unworthy hands." The crowd gasped. Some called for blood. Some threw insults at the humans standing below. "The punishment for these crimes is death," Ilara continued. "But the Empress, in her mercy, has allowed me to offer you a choice. Give us the child and you may live, or die together with her." Doyun did not hesitate. "I will never abandon my daughter." "Then you choose death." "I choose to stand with my family." Ilara smiled coldly. "Very well, the execution will begin at once." Guards began to move forward, their weapons ready. Yuna pressed herself against her father's side. Doyun looked around for any way to escape, but there was none. They were surrounded. They were helpless. They were going to die. And then the doors of the hall exploded open. Light poured in, so bright that everyone had to shield their eyes. The air itself seemed to freeze. Every being in the hall fell to their knees, not by choice but by force. Something was pressing down on them, something so powerful that standing was impossible. Something had entered the hall. The Empress Veilmora walked through the blinding light. She had not attended a council session in 9,000 years. She had not shown herself to the public in 5,000 years. But now she was here, walking calmly through the Hall of Judgment like she was taking a morning stroll. In her hand, she held a crumpled piece of paper. "Your Eternal Majesty," Ilara gasped from her knees. We were executing the criminals who violated your sacred law." "Rise." The single word lifted the pressure. Everyone slowly got to their feet, their legs shaking with fear. The Empress walked past the guards, past Ilara, until she stood directly in front of Doyun and Yuna. She looked at the father and daughter standing together, hand in hand, ready to die for each other. Then she turned to face the crowd. "For 12,000 years," she said, her voice filling every corner of the hall, "I have ruled this galaxy. For 12,000 years, beings have come before me offering tribute. They have given me conquered worlds. They have given me enslaved populations. They have given me weapons capable of destroying stars. They have given me treasures beyond imagination." She held up the crumpled paper. "And in 12,000 years, no one has ever given me anything like this." The crowd was silent. No one dared to breathe. "This is a drawing," the Empress continued. "A simple drawing made with cheap crayons on cheap paper. It shows a family, a father, a daughter, and a mother who died saving others." She looked at Doyun. This child's mother gave her life to save 12 people during the evacuation of Earth. She was not a soldier. She was not a hero from legends. She was a nurse, an ordinary woman who chose to help others instead of saving herself. She looked at Yuna. "And this child, this small human girl, walked into my garden and saw me for the first time. Do you know what she saw? She did not see a goddess. She did not see a monster. She saw a lonely woman who needed a friend." She turned back to the crowd. "Tell me, all of you who have given me tribute for thousands of years, who among you has ever seen me as anything other than a tool for your ambitions? Who among you has ever offered me something given with love instead of fear?" No one answered. No one could. "The sacred law says no one may speak to me without permission," the Empress said. "But tell me, who created this law? who decided that I should spend eternity alone, surrounded by silence and fear. She looked at Alara. You did. All of you did. You built walls around me and called it respect. You sealed me in silence and called it worship. You made me into something cold and distant because it was easier to fear me than to know me. Alara's face was pale. Your Majesty, we only wish to protect you. You wish to control access to me. You wish to make yourselves important by being the only ones who could interpret my will. The Empress's voice hardened. But this child, this tiny human girl, reminded me of something I had forgotten. She reminded me that I am not just a queen. I am also a person, and even a person who has lived for 12,000 years deserves to have a friend. She walked back to Doyun and Yuna. You raised this child, she said to Doyun. You taught her to be kind. You taught her to give back when she takes. You taught her to see people instead of titles. You should be proud. Doyun's voice was shaking. I am proud every day. The Empress nodded. Then she turned to face the crowd one last time. There will be no execution today, she announced. This child and her father are under my protection. Anyone who harms them will answer to me. She looked at Alara. And High Priestess, you will report to me tomorrow to discuss certain changes to our sacred laws. Without another word, she walked out of the hall. The crowd parted before her like water before a ship. And in the center of the hall, a janitor and his daughter stood together, still holding hands, alive against all odds. 3 months passed since that day in the Hall of Judgment. The galaxy was different now. The news of what happened had spread to every corner of known space. The story of the human janitor's daughter who befriended the Queen of Galaxies was told in taverns and palaces, in schools and temples. Some called it a miracle. Some called it madness. But everyone agreed that nothing would ever be the same. Beek Doyun still worked as a janitor. He had been offered better jobs, higher positions, even wealth beyond imagination, but he turned them all down. Honest work is nothing to be ashamed of, he always said, and I like keeping things clean. But his life had changed in other ways. He and Yuna had been given new quarters in the upper levels of the Citadel. Their new room had a real window that looked out at the stars. Yuna could see the whole galaxy from her bed now. Every night, she would pick a different star and make a wish. Today was a special day. Yuna was getting ready to visit the garden. She put on her nicest clothes and brushed her hair until it was shiny and smooth. Her father watched her from the doorway, a smile on his tired face. You look beautiful, he said. Do you think she'll like the present I made? Yuna held up a new drawing. This one showed 2 figures sitting in a garden full of flowers. One was small with black hair. The other was tall with hair that floated like it was underwater. She'll love it. Yuna ran to her father and hugged him tight. I love you, Appa. I love you too, little one. Now go, don't keep the Empress waiting. Yuna walked through the corridors of the Citadel. But this time, she did not need to sneak or hide. Everyone knew who she was now. Guards bowed their heads as she passed. Officials stepped aside to let her through. Some aliens who used to ignore humans now smiled and waved at her. She was no longer invisible. The doors to the garden opened before she reached them. Inside, the flowers glowed and sang, just like always. The pond sparkled in the light. The fake sky showed clouds that slowly drifted from one end to the other. The Empress was waiting for her by the pond. She looked different now, not softer exactly. She was still ancient and powerful and strange, but there was something in her eyes that had not been there before, a warmth, a light. Yuna, she said, I am glad you came. I brought you something. Yuna ran up to her and held out the drawing. Look, it's us, see. That's you and that's me, and those are all the flowers. The Empress took the drawing carefully, like it was the most precious thing in the universe. She studied it for a long moment, her dying sun eyes moving over every line and color. It is beautiful, she said. You are getting better. Appa says practice makes perfect. I practice every day. The Empress sat down on the grass and Yuna sat beside her. It had become their routine. Every few days, Yuna would come to the garden and they would sit together and talk. The Empress would ask questions about human things, about Earth, about families and love and loss, and Yuna would answer as best as she could. Sometimes the Empress would tell her own stories. Stories about planets she had seen born and die. Stories about wars that happened before humans even existed. Stories about what it was like to live for 12,000 years and watch everyone you knew turn to dust. I was lonely, the Empress said one day. For so long I forgot what it felt like to not be lonely. I thought that was just what existence was, cold and quiet and endless. That sounds sad, Yuna said. It was, but I did not know it was sad because I had nothing to compare it to. I thought that was normal. The Empress looked at the flowers around them. And then you came. You walked into my garden and waved at me like I was just another person. You offered me a drawing made with love. You asked me to be your friend. And now we are friends. Yes, now we are friends. In the months since that day in the Hall of Judgment, things had changed across the galaxy. The Empress had started meeting with leaders and officials again, something she had not done in thousands of years. She had changed laws that were cruel and unfair. She had freed slaves from planets that had been oppressed for centuries. She had listened to the voices of the weak and the poor, the ones who had been ignored for too long. And humanity's place in the galaxy had shifted, not because of war or politics, not because of threats or demands, but because a little girl had shown everyone that humans had something valuable to offer, something that could not be measured in gold or power. Heart, I want to show you something, the Empress said. She waved her hand and a small plant rose from the ground beside them. It was a seedling, tiny and green, with two small leaves. What is it? Yuna asked. It is a tree from Earth. Before your planet was destroyed, I sent servants to collect samples of every living thing. This seed was in cold sleep for 50 years. I planted it this morning. Yuna stared at the tiny plant with wide eyes. It's from Earth, a real Earth tree. Yes, I thought it might make you happy. Tears filled Yuna's eyes. She reached out and gently touched one of the tiny leaves. It was so small, so fragile, but it was real, a piece of home. Can I help it grow? She whispered. I was hoping you would. This will be your tree, Yuna. You will water it and care for it. And one day, when it is big and strong, we will plant more. We will fill a whole garden with earth trees, and then a whole planet, a new home for your people. Yuna threw her arms around the Empress and hugged her tight. It was against every rule, every custom, every sacred law. But the Empress did not pull away. Instead, she carefully put her arms around the small human girl and held her close. Thank you, Yuna sobbed. Thank you so much. Thank you, little one, for reminding me how to feel. Doyun stood in the doorway of the garden, watching his daughter and the Empress sit together beside the tiny tree. He did not enter. This was their moment, but his heart was so full of joy that he thought it might burst. He thought about Suman, about what she would think if she could see this. Her daughter, the child she had died to protect, had done something that changed the entire galaxy, not with weapons or power or cleverness, but with kindness, with love, with a simple crayon drawing. I did it, Suman, he whispered to the stars. I raised her brave, I raised her kind, just like you wanted. In the garden, Yuna was teaching the Empress how to draw. You have to hold the crayon softer, Yuna said seriously. Not so tight, let it move easy. Yeah, like that. Now make a circle for the head. The Empress, who had commanded armies and destroyed worlds, concentrated hard on drawing a simple circle on paper. Her line was wobbly and uneven. How is this? She asked. Yuna looked at it and smiled. It's perfect. It is not, it is quite terrible. Yeah, but it's your first try. First tries are always terrible. That's okay. You'll get better, we'll practice together. The Empress looked at the child beside her, this tiny human who had walked into her life and broken every wall she had built around herself. This small, brave, kind soul who saw friends instead of monsters and gave away her most treasured things to strangers. "Yes," the Empress said softly, "we will practice together." Outside the garden, the stars burned and planets spun and the universe continued its ancient dance. Wars were fought and peace was made. Species rose and fell. Time marched forward, uncaring and endless. But in one small garden, in the heart of the greatest empire ever known, two unlikely friends sat together drawing pictures. One was the most powerful being in existence, 12,000 years old, ruler of 1 trillion worlds. The other was a 7-year-old girl who loved her father, missed her mother, and believed that everyone deserved kindness. And together, they were changing the galaxy, one drawing at a time. Do-Yun turned away from the garden and walked back through the corridors of the Citadel. He passed aliens who nodded at him with respect. He passed humans who smiled at him with pride. He was still just a janitor, but somehow that felt more important now than it ever had before. He looked up at the stars through a window and smiled. "Our daughter did good, Suman," he said. "She did really good." And somewhere, in the endless light between stars, he could have sworn he heard his wife laugh with joy.